Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Gopidana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari. Gopidana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari. Sodanandana Radha Dhanaranjana Jaya Radha Dhanaranjana. Yasodanandana Radha Dhanaranjana Jaya Radha Dhanaranjana. Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribo Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Rangi Mom Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthapute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Shindivadi Paskatyade Satarne Om Agana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Drubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 3, Birth of Lord Krishna, text number 34. Varshan Vatatapa Hema Garma Kala Gunan Anu Sahamanao Swasa Roda Vinir Duta Mano Malau Varsha Vitat Vatap Tapahima Karma Kala Gunan Anu Sahamano Swasa Roda Vinir Datu Mano Malo Sahamano Swasaroda Nirduta Manomala Varshavatapta hima karma kala gunananu sahama saroda nidurnutamano malao. Ladies? Varshavitapta hima karma kala gunananu sama swaroda vinirdutamano malao. Varsha, the rain. Vata, strong wind. Atapa, strong sunshine. Hima, severe cold. Garma, heat. Kalagunan, Anu, according to seasonal changes. Sahamano, by enduring. Svasaroda, by practicing yoga, controlling the breath. Viniraduta, the dirty things accumulated in the mind were completely washed away. Manamalao, the mind became clean, free from material contamination. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat, and severe cold, suffering all sorts of inconvenience due according to different seasons. By practicing pranayama to control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleanse from your mind all dirty things. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worship me with peaceful minds. Purport. Vasudeva and Devaki did not attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their son very easily, nor does the Supreme Godhead accept merely anyone as his father and mother. Here we can see how Vasudeva and Devaki obtained Krishna as their eternal son. In our own lives, we are meant to follow the principles indicated herewith for getting good children. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to get Krishna as his son, but at least one can get very good sons and daughters for the benefit of human society. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that if human beings do not follow the spiritual way of life, there will be an increase of varna sankara, population. Population begotten like cats and dogs, and the entire world will become like hell. Not practicing Krishna consciousness, but simply encouraging artificial means to check the population will be futile. The population will increase and will consist of varna sankara, unwanted progeny. It is better to teach people how to beget children, not like hogs and dogs, but in controlled life. Human life is meant not for becoming a hog or dog, but for tapo divyam, transcendental austerity. Everyone should be taught to undergo austerity, tapasya. Although it may not be possible to undergo tapasya like that of Prishni and Sutapa, the Shastra has given an opportunity for a method of tapasya very easy to perform, the Sankirtan movement. One cannot expect to undergo tapasya to get Krishna as one's child, yet simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Kirtanad eva Krishnasya, one can become so pure that one becomes free from all the contamination of this material world. Mukta Sangha. Goes back home, back to Godhead. Param Vrajet. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is teaching people not to adopt artificial means of happiness, but to take the real path of happiness as prescribed in the Shastra. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and become perfect in every aspect of material existence. So the text again. My dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat and severe cold, suffering all sorts of inconvenience according to different seasons. By practicing pranayama to control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleanse from your mind all dirty things. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worship me with peaceful minds. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. In explaining divinity, in the 16th chapter, Krishna begins with Abhayam Sattva Samushudir Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti Dhanam Dhammas Sajajnascha Svareya Tapa Arjavam. So these are the qualities of the four varnas, or actually the ashrams. So the ashrams begin with brahmacharya, and Krishna summarizes as swadhyaya, scriptural study. In other words, hearing. To get a basic foundation of what is reality and what are the different kinds of reality. For instance, when one is conditioned by the material energy, we're living in a kind of reality. It may be unreal from the absolute point of view, but for right now it's our reality. It's what we think is real. At the same time, by studying the scriptures, one can understand that it is unreal from the absolute point of view. Not that the material nature doesn't exist. It doesn't exist exactly as we perceive it, but it exists and we experience it. Now, as our consciousness changes, it's not that when we see people that have one head, we'll start seeing them have 2 or 3 or 4 heads when our consciousness changes. We will see things differently, but it is not that what we're seeing is absolutely wrong, it's just incomplete. Incomplete in the sense that we have to make an intellectual effort to remember that everyone is a spirit soul, but when one is actually on the spiritual platform, one can see everyone is a spiritual soul. It doesn't require an intellectual effort, it's an experience. Now, to come to that experience, we have to begin to understand how things are so we know how to work in this world. If one is in darkness, then it's very difficult to understand what to do in darkness. You may bump into a table or a lamp in the darkness or in someone else. Therefore, it's very difficult to maneuver when one is in darkness. Of course, if one thinks he's in light when he's actually in darkness, he's going to cause a lot of trouble and break a lot of things in the room. So the beginning is to find out that we're in darkness. Of course, due to our false ego, we may become insulted when someone says we're in darkness, especially when we think we're in light. Generally speaking, the conditioned soul thinks everyone else is in darkness and he's in light. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yani Sha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Samyami Yasyam Jagati Samyati Sa Nisha Pashuto Mune. What is night for all sentient beings, Sa Nisha Sarvabhutanam, Tasyam Jagrati, is a time in awakening for the self-controlled. Ya Nisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Samyami, Yasya Jagrati Bhutani, and what is a time of awakening for all sentient beings, Sa Nisha Pashuto Mune, is a night for the introspective sage. In other words, when people think they know what's going on, or they actually are approaching reality, when they're actually going away from reality, that's called darkness. And when one is actually has some idea of what's going on, is trying to go towards that light, that's called enlightenment. But first of all, we have to understand what's the difference between light and darkness. Now here is a practical example that Devaki and Vasudeva in their previous life as Prishni and Sutapa, they were trying to get Krishna as their son. And they just didn't think it was going to happen by accident, or they thought they were already qualified. They went through some austerity in order to become qualified. Inconceivable austerity for us, bearing the rain, this cold, the heat, eating only dry leaves falling from trees, practicing pranayama to control the mind. Now we can only, if we can fast one day for Ekadasi, is considered a great austerity. And we award ourselves with a big feast the next day for our austerity. But to do that for thousands of years is inconceivable. Matter of fact, we wouldn't last thousands of years. We wouldn't last very long. We'd be on our back saying goodbye to this world very shortly. But they had enough power from their previous austerity to be able to execute such an austerity because their goal was to get the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, of course, because nature of the conditioned soul is like being a frog in a well, the famous analogy probably gave, the frog was in the well and his friend came to visit him, and his friend was describing the Atlantic Ocean, how big it was. And the frog in the well, Dr. Frog, was thinking, well, the Atlantic Ocean, maybe it's as big as my well. And he said, no, it's much, much bigger. So Dr. Frog, he puffed himself up a little bit and said, is it that big? He said, no, it's much bigger. And continuously, Dr. Frog was puffing himself up until finally he exploded. So to understand how big Krishna is beyond our tiny intelligence. Or we can try to appreciate something called infinite, whatever it might be, infinite beauty. Now we can hear the descriptions, for instance, of the Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, but still simply hearing those pastimes, although it's not different from the pastime, and gives us some access into Vrindavan, according to our qualification, which means according to the mood that we hear the stories or the pastimes of Krishna in anything in the Krishna book or the Bhagavad Gita, according to our mood, we're allowed access. So to develop that mood is very subtle, because material nature has provided us with a false ego and illusion, the energy called Maya or illusion, to be under with the false ego, doesn't allow us to separate ourselves completely from our current material position, and therefore we think we're something special because we're not aware of our infinitesimal identity as a spiritual being. Therefore, since we have to take shelter of some identity, we take shelter of the false ego under the spell of illusion, and we actually think we're somehow or another, we have some special qualifications. Although we're living in a very dangerous place, where any moment, it's like as it says, Govinda Das said, we're like a lotus leaf, like a drop of water on a lotus leaf, flickering. Any moment we can fall off the lotus leaf, because the lotus leaf has some waxy substance on it, and water doesn't last on the lotus leaf very long. So we're in a very precarious position, and by practicing devotional service, we can make advancement out of this precarious position. But if any stage or at any time we feel ourselves accomplished and comfortable and we've made great achievements and pat ourselves on the back, how nice and good we are, how pure we are, and how we're so much purer than everyone else, then immediately we slide off the lotus leaf into the water of illusion. So it doesn't take much to fall into illusion when you're already in illusion. Just a question of becoming careful not to fall into more illusion and to try to get out of illusion, and not to get exhausted on the way. So we think, I give up. Let me surrender to illusion. See what that's like for some time. Therefore, hearing is important, to try to grab something that we can try to practice, because it's only through the practice. And here the practice is one of tapasya, or austerity, which is rather an advanced process in some respects, although the actual tapasya. But at least by hearing we can appreciate sutapa, prishni, and appreciate them, and not think, oh, this is just an exaggeration. How can anyone live on dry leaves for so long? It's just ridiculous. Humbug. No, to try to appreciate, offer respects to them, and try to take one less walnut at breakfast or something and honor them. A little austerity. Because the next stage, if we cannot hear and experience and realize and perfect our lives through the process of hearing, then practice. But what is that practice? Dhanam, dhammas, and yajna. Because by yajna, by sacrifice, by dhanam, and by dhammas, that one can actually begin purification by tapasya. So the householders, they perform tapasya, but to a smaller degree. But in order to help them practice tapasya, even in household life, and tapasya in household life means to have sex life only to produce good children. So in order to qualify oneself to do that, one has to give in charity to the right people, right sannyasis, brahmanas, to the Hare Krishna movement, spreading Krishna consciousness. One has to somehow or another utilize one's resources in relation to Krishna. So that's called dana. And yajna, or dhammas, to restrain the senses from unnecessary sense gratification. Because if one eats too much or sleeps too much, then one's mind will become agitated. And one will further become agitated by sex desire. And when there's sex desire, then there'll be anger. And when there's anger, then there's going to be defense. One will be paranoid, think everyone's out to get them, or some subtle way. Or one will become angry at people, or frustrated at people if they don't listen to it. So many different ways. Anger will manifest itself. And Maya will give us every justification, except for the fact that we didn't control our senses. That's why we're frustrated and angry. It's always someone else's fault, not my own lack of sense and mind control. So Dhamma, Dana, and Yajna. So the households who perform yajna, like Krishna when he was in Dwarka, he used to perform Agnihotra yajna every morning. He gave in charity. He got up and monk from when the roosters crowed in the morning. Although he was being embraced by Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, he got up, he displayed sense control, he displayed charity, and he performed yajna to set an example for us. Then, if one is able to control the senses, perform yajna, and give in charity, then at the time of a certain time, then there is vanaprastha, actually going to the forest, not going for a walk in Tivoli forest every day, but actually going into the forest, a real forest, and doing further austerity, tapasya, because at that time there's nothing to give in charity. There's no question of sense and mind control, because one is not engaged in sense gratification anymore. And there's no question of yajna, or there may be some yajna in the forest, but there's not a whole lot of paraphernalia. Like Dhruva Maharaj performed yajna by building a deity, but of Krishna and worshipping it, but mostly it was Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, his tapasya, was chanting the holy name and fixing his mind on the holy name, and by his austerity, he was able to meditate on the holy name. He was able to meditate upon Krishna, and that's the greatest tapasya, is giving up our false ego and meditating upon Krishna. So in this age, as Prabhupada points out, to try to artificially perform tapasya like the great personalities in the past would lead to one's downfall. To try to go into a tree house and simply chant Hare Krishna all day, we won't last very long. There are devotees who try to do it. They couldn't even imitate Rupa Goswami in that way. There was one devotee in Mayapur, he was in a tree house, he was chanting rounds, he refused to do any service. This is 1970 something. Because he said that he wanted to control his mind and senses, and this was the highest thing that you can do, is fix your mind on Krishna. So of course, everyone else came to the festival, they did service except for him. So what happens if one becomes proud? Maya will say you're a great personality. There's no taste in the holy name. There's no humility. The holy name is not our servant to increase our false prestige, how great a devotee we are by how nicely we're chanting or how many rounds we're chanting. So he got distracted, and he went somewhere else to fulfill the desires of his false ego. The chanting didn't do it, so he went somewhere else to become important and the center of someone else's attention other than Krishna's. So, in this age, we try to perform some tapasya, and there's gradations of it. It's not that if we naturally progress in the chanting of the holy name, then naturally our senses and mind will become more controlled, because they'll be less distraction, less cluttering of the mind. The mind will less be the waves of thoughts that constantly splash through our mind will diminish. The senses will not be so much agitated, and one can more easily control the mind and senses. Of course, if one has to continue on being determined to do so, because at any time, if we want to agitate our senses, they'll become eventually agitated. It just takes a little bit longer to do it, that's all. Maya will say, well, it's been a long time since you agitated your senses. Why don't you try to see what it's like now? Maybe it's even nicer than it was before. And then one has to try harder to agitate the senses, but they'll become agitated after some time. Maya will provide the necessary agitation and illusion so that one can taste Maya again. And as far as dhanam, if one becomes greedy for one's material advancement and wants to create his own empire and becomes bewildered by thinking he can actually become happy by profit, adoration, or distinction, or any other allurement that Maya may offer, he can give you a kingdom or whatever you want. Then as one becomes purified, it becomes less attractive. But if one wants to experience it again, if one becomes curious again, what it would be like to have a kingdom, then Maya will provide it. And one will have to perform the necessary austerities to get it, and then realize that it was a waste of time again. Like Vishwamrita Muni, going through great austerity, but just for 60,000 years in meditation, but just by hearing the ankle bells of Menaka, he fell down. So if we can go through austerity for 60 days, we think we're illuminated, we're self-realized. We're ready for anyone or anything. But even after 60,000 years, because he wasn't perfect in Krishna consciousness, therefore he became allured by the illusory energy. So Prabhupada used to say that one of the problems of our devotees in the Hare Krishna movement is that they're not sufficiently afraid of Maya. We think, I got Maya under control. I'm chanting so nicely. I've been following the principles. Maya is just my slave. I just say, Maya, go away. Maya says, yes, yes, of course. Whenever you need me, I'm here. So, and whatever we put our consciousness into, whatever we develop, then things will improve. But even perfection, like Devaki and Vasudeva, the perfection is they got Krishna as their son, but we shouldn't expect such perfection just by chanting 50 rounds before conception. Because we can chant millions, 1,000 rounds a day, but we have to, unless we become fully conscious of Krishna, then whatever we do, there will be results according to our consciousness. It's not only our skill externally, but how much we're absorbed in Krishna consciousness is going to determine how much spiritual our activities are. Of course, following the rules and regulations, hearing properly, performing dhanam, dhamma, and yagya according to one's position as best one can, will obviously make the consciousness improve. But it improved to some degree. We can't expect perfection overnight. It's a gradual process. Because we're not even aware of what our attachments are lying within our heart. We don't understand the layers of attachment we have and the subtlety of Krishna consciousness. And therefore we have to try to remain humble no matter how much we think we're advanced. Because no matter how much we think we're advanced, we may be far from the actual achievement we're looking for. Although it may be extraordinarily better than it was before, but it may not be nothing like actual perfection is. Now, therefore, one should try with determination to go to the goal and not become bewildered by smaller achievements. Then, if one is able to practice tapasya and sense and mind, one is able to go on hearing and on the basis of the hearing practicing dana, charity. For instance, giving charity according to nectar of instruction is also to give the charity of the holy name to others, to give transcendental literature to others, to give Krishna consciousness to others. That's the greatest charity. So it's not that we ever stop giving charity. Even the spiritual world, they're always giving Krishna to each other. They're always performing some austerity. Radharani and the gopis, they get up early in the morning to start getting ready to please Krishna. And they go to sleep late at night serving Krishna. So there's always some kind of austerity. They walk vast distances for their service. They're always decorating themselves simply to please Krishna. So it's all some kind of austerity. And their sacrifice, they're always chanting the holy name and doing whatever they can to please Krishna. So even in the spiritual world that goes on. And here it's a little bit more, a little different, I mean, in the sense that, but not so much different. The same quality, the same idea is there, but we have the holy name. That we don't have to wait millions of years before Krishna appears. Krishna is already appearing. And as much as we perform yagya, sacrifice to the holy name, dhanam, giving Krishna consciousness to others, and dhammas, engaging our senses and mind in Krishna's service, then the holy name will reveal itself. The holy names will reveal themselves to us. Then if one has children, as much as one is Krishna conscious, then the children will come out potential devotees. Don't expect anyone with 4 hands, 4 arms. We're lucky in this age if you can get some baby with 2 arms. And then one has to go through the process of serving the baby in order to bring it up in Krishna consciousness and not expect any results that the baby, when the child grows up, it's going to serve me. I serve the child and later on it serves me. No one to try to do the service of the child as service to everything, as a service to a devotee of Krishna. As a potential devotee, one serves the child simply for the service of Krishna, Guru and Krishna, to help bring another child, living entity back to the spiritual world. And if one is not having children, still one can try to bring other living entities back to the spiritual world as service to Krishna. Then one will gradually reach perfection as Vasudeva and Devaki, and Krishna will appear, and our lives will become successful. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you. Tell me, you said that vanaprastha means you go to forest. Is it actually mean you go to the temple and live or family life or every...
Yeah, that's the kind of, in this age, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur has suggested to go in the forest is really not very practical in the Kali Yuga. So many campers will be there and people will be shooting at you, thinking you're one of the deer in the forest.
Some peaceful forest.
Peaceful forest.
Peaceful forest.
Well, you could live in Tivoli Park.
Normal house, not on the house on the tree.
Well, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur suggested, as Prabhupada said, go to a place like Vrindavan and hear and chant about Krishna and vanaprastha in this age.
Thank you.
Anything else? Wala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol.